Are you wondering how it is that you can implement the BRRRR method while living in a completely different city? That's exactly what we're going to cover on today's episode of Tips from the Pros. So I have with me a guest that he lives in Utah and buys his BRRRR properties, his rentals in Ohio. And he does all of it remotely. We're going to be talking about how he built this team, how he analyzes the deals, he's been funding them, how's he's transitioning to acquiring more private money lenders, getting into the multifamily space. So we're going to cover all of this on this episode. So we're going to be interviewing Justin Munk, who's out of Utah, buys all of his rentals in Ohio, does all of this remotely. And what's really cool is he does all this while having a full-time job managing a solar sales team. So he has a full-time job and has been able to pick up rental properties essentially part-time. And he's doing a great job. He's doing everything. It's amazing to see it. Yeah, and you got to check out also his podcast, the Money Maven Project, where he talks a lot about the mindset behind investing and everything like that. So with that being said, let's talk to Justin. All right, Mr. Justin Munk, welcome to the podcast Tips from the Pros. Very happy to have you here. How you doing, sir?
Dude, I'm doing great and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Very good. I'm very excited to have you on. We met actually in a clubhouse room, and it just you were one of the few that hopped on, and you had a very good story, and we seem to be coming from the same place as far as trying to
Yeah.
share our experience, right? And not the fluff and not all that nonsense that you hear so much in real estate. So I guess that was really the biggest reason why I wanted to connect with you and go ahead and do this interview, because I feel like what you're offering and what you're putting out is going to be helpful for everybody. So, with that being said, this is the question I love starting off all the time. Why real estate? What got you into real estate?
Oh man, that's a great question. So growing up, I had an uncle that was very successful in business. He started his own company and did really, really well. And he ended up selling that company and retiring like when he was 40 years old. And he made a bunch of money in that transaction, but he also said that he made more money um, in real estate after selling the business than he ever did in the business. And because he took the proceeds from selling that business, obviously, and then invested them in multifamily and just made lots of money. And the guy was like fishing 4 days a week after he turned 40. And I was like, that's what I want. Like whether it's fishing or whatever, like I want that kind of lifestyle or that freedom and those choices. And so early on, and I mean, this was like when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, I understood that there's something cool or something powerful about real estate. So when me and my wife got married, we bought a townhome and we lived in it for 4 or 5 years, and then we moved out, bought another home, and we rented that townhome out. And it was cash flowing great. It was, there was very very little problems. We had great tenants. It was a great experience. And so I'm like, well, this is a proven concept. How do I do more of those? And so that kind of started the journey on real estate and just starting to learn and understand the power of real estate.
And how long ago was this when you did your first investment? How long ago was that?
Let's see, we've been married 11 years. So we moved out of that place probably 5, 6 years ago. And
Oh,
it took me a while to understand how to now expand now to get more properties because as you know, if you buy a property as an investment property, you got to come up with 20 or 30% down. So I'm like, well, how am I going to be able to do that? And how am I going to be able to scale beyond just one property without having to come up with 20 or 30% down every time? And so in my research, listening to podcasts, reading books, all of that, I discovered the BRRRR method. So buy and hold, but you buy, you rehab, you put a renter in it, you refinance, and then you repeat, getting all of your capital back out. And we can go into more detail on that if you want. But that's when I discovered that, I was like, wow, now I can just keep recycling my capital over and over, and I'm able to scale. And so that's kind of what once I learned that, man, I was all in.
For sure. Yeah. No, I love the bird method. To me, it's a great strategy to use, but a lot of people don't really understand them. We're gonna get into that bird method. I want to hear how it is that you implemented it. But what is it that got you into real estate? So you decided to get in. You know, you had your family was in it. It worked out. You kind of learned that. What, as far as education goes, what was that education that kind of really gave you that confidence and the knowledge to say, let me jump in? Was it a book? Was it a course that you did? Like, what gave you that confidence?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I began to, learn about real estate and what the options were, I don't remember exactly how I stumbled onto it. I stumbled onto biggerpockets.com, which many of your listeners are probably familiar with. They have lots of good books. Brandon Turner wrote some very good books that are very simple to understand if you're getting into real estate. There's some great books there. But so that was good, like the tactical information I learned from those books, but the the courage and the confidence to jump in came from the Bigger Pockets podcast. So not just plugging Bigger Pockets here, but it's a big part of my story, So just hearing day after day, like people succeeding, like just normal people just like me saying, oh yeah, I bought 12 properties in a year as I got started. I'm like, this is crazy. And so just knowing that knowing people could do it and that it was possible and it wasn't just a thing that I had to pay, 40 grand for a course to understand, like that was super empowering, and it gave me a lot of courage to jump into our first property.
And
And yeah.
did you ever buy any course or anything like that? Or did you just start with that first property and you kind of just stumbled your way through it?
Yeah, I didn't buy any courses initially, and we bought the property. Ironically, we ended up losing a little bit of money on the first deal. Our contractor ended up being how do I say this kindly, not who he said he was. So we ended up having to sell that property and backing out of it. But the rest of them have been great so far. So no, I didn't buy any courses or anything. Didn't have a mentor. But looking back, I think that having a mentor or some kind of a coach that had done it, that had done what I was trying to do, would have kept me a little safer as far as avoiding a few mistakes, and also would have made it go faster. I think I would have progressed more quickly. So although I didn't do that on my story, I am a proponent. Like if you find somebody that you can connect with, that you like, as far as a coach or a course or a mentor, it's going to be worth the money, because it's going to take time. It's going to reduce how long it takes for you to get things done. And just because you have the accountability, right, every week or whatever the schedule is, somebody's going to call you and say, did you do what you say you were going to do?
Right.
And that can be huge. And I have used a mentor as I've been learning and exploring larger multifamily deals, syndicating those deals. That's something that I have made the investment of a mentor, and that's expedited the how fast I learned and the growth there. So it's definitely worth it.
You know, what's funny is that you seem to have taken the same path as I did, in the sense that, like, we didn't start off with mentors right away, but as we kind of got the ball rolling, we got a little bit more successful in this, we realized the value of a mentor. And now we're looking for them everywhere. And anything that we want to do, we're willing to, who could I get as a mentor for this area? Because you realize that learning curve. But I think the biggest challenge people have when they're starting off, which is why I asked this question, is that there's a lot of mentors out there charging for this and charging for education, charging for all this. And it's probably, let's say you're in Utah and there's mentors in Florida and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about real estate. It's like, the markets are different. I mean,
Mm.
the way you flip a house in Florida is not the way you flip a house in Texas,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
We
yeah.
we have
Yeah.
different markets. We have everything. It's very different. So when they try to do these things, I just have such an issue. And I always tell people, like, if you're gonna get a mentor, make sure it's local or it's in that business that you're going to be doing. Like, it needs to be somebody that's taking that same action that you are, that you're looking to
Yeah.
learn from, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and I would definitely talk to people that have been through the course to see if it actually met their expectations. of getting them to help, yeah, helping them accomplish whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. That would be huge for sure. Because there's a lot of mentors that will give you a lot of data, a lot of content, a lot of videos to watch. But at the end of the day, like you need somebody holding your hand, looking over your shoulder as you make this, because no two deals in all of real estate are exactly the same, and no, you're not exposed in the same way on any two deals. Like there's some commonalities, but man, there's just stuff that you cannot, that only somebody that's been doing it for a while can understand. So
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend that, rather than, I don't know, whatever you got to do. I know a guy that flipped couches online. Like he'd buy used couches, clean them up, and then sell them for double what he paid for, and he earned money for his first few properties. I would do that a little bit more,
Yeah.
and hire somebody, or bring somebody on to kind of walk you through your first few deals. It'll be so much smoother.
So that kind of brings up the next point is a lot of people when they're getting into real estate investing, and I cringe every time I hear somebody tell me this, is they say, yeah, I'm gonna quit my job and go all in on real estate, right? And I'm like, okay, I love the commitment, but what have you done, in real estate? Oh, nothing. What do you know? Nothing.
Yeah.
Why are you going so all into it, when you haven't even tried anything? And it's a lot of the times what I get to is it's almost the fluff that's out there that you have to, like go all in and just do all this, where they feel guilty if they were to hold a job while investing in real estate, while getting their feet
Yep.
wet, while testing out the market. And I'm like, that's, the smarter way of going about it, instead of let me just quit everything, jump head first, and let's see what happens. I mean, what was your experience with all that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I couldn't turn off the income stream that I had from a day job, because I mean, I had a mortgage on our primary residence. I had a wife, and at the time, two or three kids. I have four now. So until my real estate can make up for that income in passive cash flow, I'm in the job. Like I have a full-time job. I'm the part owner and manager of a solar sales organization. So I mean, that thing keeps me hopping all day long, every day of the week. And but I know, so real estate, I'm fitting it in on the sides. I from 6 to 7 in the morning, that's like deal analysis time. I'm getting up like at 4:45. I have a morning routine, and then from 6 to 7, I'm taking care of whatever the most important pieces of my real estate efforts are. Whether that's finding the next deal, whether that's analyzing deals that I'm, got my eye on, whether that's figuring out who I can talk to about private money. That's kind of the time, and then obviously go to work. I might be putting out fires or handling real estate emails throughout the day, but it's pretty much my main gig throughout the day. Come home, or whatever, dinner with the family, have the evening with my family, and then once they go to bed, I'll have an hour or two in the evenings where I'm not watching Netflix. I'm not on social media other than to network and meet people in the real estate world. I'm back to the real estate thing. So you can definitely do it with a full-time job. Like don't think that you have to quit your job to be able to start getting traction in real estate. And even the guys that like tell you to go all in and commit, like Grant Cardone himself. I'm a Grant Cardone fan. I've got my 10x flag
Hmm.
right here. I mean, he says he maximize your main flow first, like maximize your main flow of income first before you start branching out into other streams of income. And so, especially if you're in sales, maximize that first. Like, how can you make more money at your first gig, and then start figuring out how to fit in the real estate stuff as a side hustle, until obviously you can make the jump. And for
Yeah.
some, if you don't like your job, it's not a healthy place to be. Then let's make that sooner rather than later. But be careful to say that you have to leave your job before you can do anything in real estate, because that's not true.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people almost are getting into real estate investing because it has such a low barrier to entry, almost like a game, right? They don't take it serious. They don't understand the risk involved with this business. They don't understand the amount of work, especially when a lot of people, the lowest barrier to entry is wholesaling. they think that, all right, cool, I can make, 15 grand a month. I, you know, that's ideal, but that's not exactly how easy it is. The amount of work that you got to put in to make that 15 grand a month consistently is a lot, right? I mean, you need a lot of at bats, you need a lot of things, and then with every other area, it's the same amount level of risk, and it's just, I tell people, I'm like, respect the industry. Respect that. If you want to be a real estate investor, respect the industry you're jumping in, because if not, like, you take it so lightly. You like, oh, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna do all this, and then when that Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. You jump into the space, you get hit in the mouth right away because you realize it's not that simple, and then you're
Yeah.
like, shit, now what? I just quit my job. I lost everything. I'm not making any money. I don't know what to do. You realize how
Yeah.
much harder it is, and that you're not willing to put in the work to get that. So, you're finding yourself now that you're saying, okay, you got your system, which is, I like how you have it structured. This is what I do in the morning. I have this throughout the day, and this is how I finish off the day. So you're planning out your real estate game.
Yeah.
Um, what is your business? What is it that your real estate business involves?
Yeah. So we were buy and hold uh company. We're investing out of state. So I live in northern Utah. Prices in northern Utah for homes are just ridiculous. I know there's plenty of markets that would say the same. And so I started looking outside of my market just because I felt like my capital could go farther in other markets. And from connections on Instagram, people that I met there, started to see some people investing in Ohio. And I'm like, all right, let's check that out. I did actually, I don't think I mentioned this, I did actually pay $99 for 1 hour with one of those investors.
Hmm.
So that would be some mentoring that I did pay for. I forgot about that. So he took what would have maybe taken me 6 months to learn as far as what areas of Ohio or should I invest in, what are some of the nuances of that market to watch out for. That was very uh, in an hour I learned all of that rather than trying to figure it out over the next 2 or 3 months. So that was huge. I forgot I did that. So that would be a little bit of coaching that I did do, and he's actually still been a resource even today that I bounce questions off of. But anyway, so we started learning the market in Ohio, because out there I can buy a 3 bed, 2 bath, for 40 grand or 50 grand, where here it would be 125 or 150 grand. So it's crazy. I can buy more properties more quickly out there. Um, and yeah, I mean, once I kind of learned the market, learned the areas, learned the zip codes that I wanted to focus on, I think we were making offers in like 3 or 4 days. I found an agent. I found a few agents and started working with all of them till I kind of felt like which one was going to be the best for me. And then we were making offers within days. So we buy, and like I said, we use the BRRRR method. And traditionally, or for the most part, it's been my own capital or a home equity line of credit that I have to fund these deals. But we're now just starting to, because I've got enough deals that I can't afford all of them. We are looking for private investors. We're bringing on people that have some money laying around making no money, no interest. And, we're saying, hey, we can get you 10%, 12-month terms. And they're like, yeah, let's do that. So we're just starting to branch out into that so we can buy more properties at a time.
So what kind of research? Because I mean, it's very intimidating for a lot of people to start saying, "Hey, my city doesn't work. I need to invest outside of my city. I'm not moving there, but I'm gonna be investing there." So you were on Instagram. You spoke to some people. You heard people talking about Ohio, and then you reached out to this investor. Like, what was that enough, or did it need to hit like a certain criteria for you? As far as I need properties to kind of cash flow this much. I'm looking for this speed of market of saying, how quickly do they rent? Like, what's your research process when you're looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely helpful in me narrowing down what areas to focus on and what areas to not to avoid. So that was huge. And kind of how to identify the taxes and a few things that are kind of different in Ohio, and how to deal with the point of inspection thing that they have going on in a lot of cities out there. So that was some good coaching, that they're very particular to that market. I obviously did my own research. Okay, what's the job trend? What are, unemployment rates? What are some big companies moving into that area? Amazon had just built a distribution center right nearby. So I've got tons of jobs. It's got good coaching teams, or not coaching teams, good like sports teams. There's a lot. So I did my own research as far as the market in general, population growth, what home prices have been doing. So I did some of that just to back up what that other investor kind of told me, and that was super helpful. So I did some of my own also.
I gotcha. So now, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. That's how you started going. So explain, let's give a quick explanation as to what is the BRRRR method and how is it that you've been implementing that method? Why is it that it's been helping you so much?
Yeah. So the BRRRR method, I shop just like somebody that's flipping a house would shop. We need to buy a distressed property from a distressed seller normally. We need to buy at 70%. So we'll take the ARV, go 70% of the after repair value minus our rehab costs, and that's kind of our maximum offer. Now, that's if it's a perfect BRRRR. If I'm okay to leave a little bit of money in the deal, then I can offer a little bit more than that number. And I wish I had a whiteboard, I'd write it out. But because what the plan is we're going to put some money into it. We're going to clean it up. We may not rehab it as much as somebody that's going to flip the property, because they obviously want top dollar. They're going to put a little more money into it. We are going to make it nice, rent ready, fix any problems, fix any safety issues, those kinds of things. Get it ready for a tenant, put it, and making sure that we can get an appraisal to where once we go 6 months later, when we go get an appraisal, the bank will usually give you, depending on the bank, 70 to 80% of that after repair value. With that cash out refinance, that cash coming back to me is covering the purchase price and the rehab amount. So I've usually have all my money back. Now it's not perfect every time. Sometimes, whatever, I have to pay a little bit more on the rehab, or the appraisal doesn't come back quite as high as we thought. So I end up leaving a couple $1,000s in the deal or something like that, which to me is, I'm like, okay, for $2,000, I got cash flowing property that's, in this case, cash flowing $300 a door, and I'm all in 50 something thousand, and it's worth 75. That's a pretty good deal for me. That's a pretty good place for my $2,000. And I even messaged Brandon Turner once on Instagram, and amazingly he responded. He's like, because I'm like, did you get all your money back every time on a BRRRR? And he's like, it's actually the exception. Most of the time we're leaving a few $1,000s in the deal. So just because that freaked me out at first. I'm like, oh no, I can't find this perfect BRRRR. And once he said that, no, there's like, those are the exception, you're going to usually leave a little bit of money. I'm like, okay, let's go then. Then I had more confidence that I was doing it right.
Yeah, I mean,
So
what's funny to your point on that is I have buyers, especially from the West Coast, that reach out to us wanting to buy rentals because they're like, it's Texas, right? So you should be able to buy houses for pennies and make, 3 times cash flow. It like, I mean,
mhm,
these far out thoughts and everything. And I try to bring them back down to earth because I'm like, yes, it's Texas and it is cheaper than California, but everything's still relative to price and rent
yeah,
and everything. So I mean, it's all the
yeah,
same stuff.
yeah,
It's just you're paying less for a house. And they tell me, well, I want, at least 20% equity. I want, $400 cash flow, including all my capex, all this, minor rehab. And I'm like, all right, so, you know, this isn't your Santa's Christmas list. Like, like you gotta be okay with leaving some money in the deal. They're like,
yeah,
oh, I don't want to leave money in the deal. I'm like, oh, then you were maybe not ready to invest. Because are
yeah,
you gonna find deals like that? Yes, but
yeah,
not from likely from finding it from a wholesaler or something like that. It's gonna be very hard. You got to source
yeah,
the deal yourself. So if you're willing
yeah,
to invest and leave some money in the deal, but that has become, and I still blame social media and all these people out there because they make it seem like it's so simple, it's so easy, you make a killing. And it's like, no, there's more risk involved. You probably do
Yeah.
have to leave, maybe 10 grand and 15 grand in the deal, but now it's cash flowing. You have a
Hmm.
great investment, it's got equity, and it's in an area that makes sense. That's going to keep appreciating. You're getting your tax deductions. I mean, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so hearing you say that you find yourself leaving money in the deal and all that is it's good because it's like,
Yeah.
yes, that's just a part of it.
Yeah. There's just no perfect deal. I mean, if you're looking for reasons to back out of a deal, you'll always find one. So there's just no perfect thing. And the best, the successful real estate investors, they're the ones that they're able to deal with a almost perfect deal and make it work as the business. And I mean, that's the skill that you need to be able to see the opportunities in the different deals. And so why is that BRRRR method so important to us? Well, as a new investor, we didn't have like $500,000 laying around for capital, right? We have our home equity line of credit and our personal cash. So by using the BRRRR method, I hold the property for 6 months, we cash out, refinance, I get my money back, and now I have that capital to go do another one. And so that was huge as far as us feeling like we could get started with minimal money, or access to it, because I could turn it over, over and over again. And now, if we use private, hard money is a great solution. That requires very little out of pocket. Private investors I prefer, because you can kind of nail down your terms and it's less of a process to get the money. Private money, right? We have a 12-month term, 10% interest. I usually have their money back in 8 or 9 months, and then we can do it again. So now it's not even my money. It's I'm just parking their money in this deal, getting it tied up, doing the cash out refinance, get their money back, send it back to them, and then they're like, okay, where's the next deal? So now I can start to build a lot of momentum that way.
And when you're doing all of our refis have been for money lenders, and we refi that loan. So then, because we're refinancing a loan, our interest rate is actually lower than if we were to do a cash out refi. Those interest
Oh,
rates are a
okay.
little bit higher, and you do have to wait, like you're saying, 6 months. Where when you're refinancing a loan with the lenders that we work with, we refinance pretty much whenever we want. As soon as we're done, up to 80%, we can refinance the loan. Are those the things that you're looking at, as far as being able to get more of that capital going, lowering your interest rates? Because I mean, every little thing helps, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, every little thing helps. I mean, it means more cash flow and more passive income. So yeah, anything we can do to help that. And so you're saying that because you're using the private money, it's not like a loan. The bank, there's no seasoning period on that. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So if
Okay.
you have an underlying loan that it's not a cash out refi, they treat it differently. So even if we're buying a property that actually doesn't, we're not going to be in it. Pretty much, let's say 80% of ARV, we're going to be in it for less. We'll still borrow 80% because when we refinance, we have the option to refinance, that 80% out. Because if we borrow less than that, let's say we borrow at 70% and we need to refinance 80, now it becomes a cash out refi. So then the numbers and everything become different at that point. So we always try to just borrow the full. And what we do, I mean, you're saying that ARV minus 70%. We would love to be buying rentals like that, but right now, like most of the rentals for us to be in it, no money, we're at more or less 80% of ARV for all of our rentals. That's
Yeah.
kind of where we're at. But
Yeah.
so I mean it's interesting how you have your model set up and everything. So how do you set up a team? Because you live in Utah, you invest in Ohio. There's a lot of moving parts, right? You're making an offer. How do you let's start there. How do you evaluate the deal from Utah when you're saying, okay, I want to buy this house? What does that evaluation process go? How do you know that you can pull the trigger on it?
Yeah. So honestly, either my agent or we're just finding deals on the MLS right now. They're fewer and farther between, but my marketing expenses are lower that way because I'm not driving for dollars or texting or doing direct mail and stuff. So and there just seems to be enough deals that I can pick them up. So I'll find one on the MLS. I'll run some quick numbers on it. I kind of know the general ARV, or the value of it after it's fixed up. So I can run some basic numbers. I just use the Bigger Pockets calculators because I'm a member there. So that makes it super simple. Um, we'll run the numbers, and if it looks good, I'll shoot email over to our agent and say, hey, let's offer X on this property. And so again, I haven't seen it yet. I've probably seen some pictures. That's it though. And I'll say, hey, let's offer this on the property. And we always offer with an inspection contingency. So if I get into that deal and we find that the foundation walls are crumbling, then we have an out. We always have an out. So we'll make offers like that sight unseen, just looking at pictures and stuff. And if we get the offer accepted, then, and I'm getting pretty good at estimating rehab again within a few $1,000. So again, we're kind of making some assumptions. If we get in contract, then the first thing I do is send my contractor over there to get me an estimate on the rehab. And at about the same time, I'm also keying up a home inspector to go do that. Now, everybody's like, well, whoa, you're paying for a home inspection on a rental property. I'm like, well, yeah, I live in Utah. I'd like somebody to go see it that knows what they're doing. And he's more of an expert than I am when it comes to looking for problems in houses. So even if I was local, like, why would I go if he could go for me? So that's a whole thing there. But so yeah, he goes out, he sends me like a 75-page report, hundreds of pictures, well, probably 100 pictures. And then his explanation of what's going on there and what the potential problems are. And I tell him to inspect it like it's going to be sold to a retail buyer. Like, I want everything. Is there a loose outlet socket or whatever? Like, I want everything. And so contractor goes out, takes a look. I get the inspection report back. I get all those things that I want fixed in that inspection report. Tell my contractor to add that stuff to his scope of work. He gets me a rehab number. This is all hopefully taking place within, right now it takes a while, but maybe 2 weeks at the most, but hopefully 7 to 10 days. And once I have that rehab number and there's nothing crazy, nothing scary in the inspection, then we'll send our earnest money over and lock that deal in. In Ohio, we have to remove the inspection contingency. We have to sign a paper that says that we no longer have that in there. And then we move forward and close on the deal. So a lot of people are like, wait, you're buying properties in Ohio and you haven't seen them? And it just freaks people out. Like, they just think I'm so crazy. And granted, probably am. I hear that a lot. But like I said, I'm not the expert. Like, I'm not a contractor and I'm not a home inspector. So ultimately, why do I want to see it? I want their opinion. So that's my team. Like, inspector, go see it and send me the videos and pictures. Contractor, go see it and tell me if there's anything that freaks you out and what's it going to cost. And obviously the agent looks through it. He's telling me about the neighborhood. He's telling me about the outside. And so I have 3 people that are experts in the industry guiding me to buy whether this house is purchasable or not, or if it's a deal. And then and they're all motivated by different things, right? Yes, the agent might fudge things a little bit because he wants to sell me the property or he wants to be a part of that transaction. And the contractor might be like, yeah, well, we don't need to fix that because he wants to keep the job simple for himself. But the inspector will come in and he's like, I don't care, $400 whether I beat this thing up or not. So he's very unbiased. So he's keeping those 2 people in check. I kind of have this check and balance system to where no one person can lead me too far astray without another point of view. Then finally, the property management company will send their representative over to do a walkthrough before we rent the place out. That's like my final checkpoint, because she or he is super picky. I mean, if there's dust on the counter, like, she's going to tell me about it. So if it hasn't been cleaned, if there's an outlet or a light fixture that needs to be repaired, she's telling me about it. And if it's in the scope of work for my contractor and he didn't do it, I can call him out on it. So I feel like I have some checks and balances, right? She's motivated. The property management representative is motivated to make sure this place is safe. It looks good. It's going to rent well. That's her motivation. That's how she's paid. So she has her point of view. And so with those 4 team members, I feel like I'm protected, and there's checks and balances, and no one person can lead me too far astray. And ultimately, I've seen the property, just not with my own eyes at the end of the day.
Man, that is nuts. So eh, as somebody, I grew up in construction. I've done construction my whole life. So where you are, I don't like giving up that much control because what I've learned coming from a contractor that became an investor is as a contractor, a lot of times you look at everything needs to be done. As an investor, you're like, not in this area, not in this market, not for a rental, right? So relying 100% on what the contractor said, it says, is not a good idea. Then you have your inspector that comes in and will, mark up everything in the
Yeah.
property. So they'll
Yeah.
mark up every single thing. But again, as an investor, you come in and you say, yes, I get it, but that's not a big deal. Or I'm fine with this. Or now, okay, I don't need to fix this right now. I know it's there. I'll fix it later. You make the assessment. You have your real
Yeah.
estate agent that's doing the comps, telling you the area, and then what the one piece that so all of that makes sense, and I love the checks and balances. But the one piece I think that you nailed it with is having your property manager come in later and see, can it be rented how it is, because
Yeah.
that's your end goal, right? Your end goal is to be able to rent the property. So having a property manager come in when it's all said and done, saying, look, I rent properties all the time and this property will not rent this way, right? Or this property is great, it'll rent no problem. I mean, I think that final piece is so crucial to this whole
Yeah.
formula working.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm giving some guidance to my contractor. I'll show him pictures of other houses that have the comps, right? Hey, this one appraised for what we need this one to appraise for, and this is how nice it looked inside. So I can give him some guidance there. But it's funny because even if I lived in Ohio, I'd probably still do it this exact same way because I'm too busy with my main gig to go see these properties, whether I live around the street, around the corner, or halfway across the nation. So it's been a really good system. It's protected me, and as far as not making any mistakes or having anybody lead me astray, and another level. This is probably unique to Ohio. Maybe there's other markets that have it. If you're still afraid to jump into a long distance investing, Ohio is cool because some of the cities there have a point of sale inspection. So if I'm a homeowner and I want to sell my house, I have to get an inspection by the city. They're going to come out. They're going to say all the things wrong with my house. Most of the time, it's just outside because they're obviously kind of like an HOA controlling like how your paint looks and how your front porch looks and does the driveway need to be repaired and things like that. So even before I make an offer on a property, I can see what we call the POS, the point of inspection, the point of sale inspection report. So I know all the things outside that are wrong. Are the front stairs falling in? Are there some windows broken? Does the garage need to be fixed? Like all this cool stuff. So I have another point of reference as far as what's wrong with that. I can just get that to the contractor and say, hey, in order for this transaction to happen, as the buyer, we assume those repairs, right? The seller will never take on any of that. So I say, hey, for this deal to work, we got to fix all these things. And he adds that to a scope of work. So it's like another inspector, not even involved in the deal. He's paid his $8, $10 an hour, whatever, to go look at the property. He's also given me his point of view on what needs to be fixed on that property. And in that case, we don't have an option. Like we have to fix all those things.
Yeah.
So that it's another level. I feel like that's 5 points of like protection or eyes on the property, even though I haven't seen the property.
Well, and it's also like you said before, which is I love when people understand the value of building out systems, right? So like you said, this is a system that you have in place, and this is a system that's going to allow you to replicate the model to maybe, while you try to branch off into something else, this model can keep going because if you're the one that has to inspect the property, look at everything, put everything together, kind of like what we are doing in San Antonio, because I guess it's also been because we haven't needed to, right? Do what you did, get creative like you did. We've taken the easy road of saying, well, we know how to do all of that, so let's do it ourselves so we know
Yeah.
it's right. Um, you start realizing how much time is wasted in a sense. I don't know if wasted is the right term, right? Because it's part of the investment, it's how you make a good investment, but it makes it very hard to scale. it makes it very hard to focus on anything else. So the one question though I did have is 2 weeks for an inspection, and you have an option period. Is that normal in Ohio where they'll give you a 2 week inspection period and you can still back out? Like, is that normal?
Yeah, I guess we haven't really run into any issues with that. I can't remember what we usually ask for. I think we ask for 10 days. And usually the seller's okay if we're like, hey, it's scheduled for this day, or we just keep them posted on that. We're still in the deal. We're still nothing, everything looks good. Um, and we've been able to just kind of keep those deals alive without having too much of an issue. Nobody's really given us any grief on it. I can't remember like the exact timelines that we ask for, but I mean, everybody's super slammed. Like appraisers, inspectors, they're all a couple weeks out, so everybody gets it, and everybody
But
understands it's taking time.
the fact that you're still finding deals on the MLS and having the 10 week option period and submitting an offer below asking and getting it, like, we haven't seen that in San Antonio in quite some time now.
Yeah,
So I mean that I think those things are very favorable to your strategy and to the system that you have in place, because I think it becomes I think that kind of system will be a lot harder to implement, let's say in San Antonio, where finding deals on the MLS are so hard to do because you're having so many people moving here from the West Coast,
yeah,
and they're overbidding. I mean,
yeah,
we're being outbid by like 30 grand on a property that's I'm like, I was thinking of making 25 on it and you're outbidding by 30. Like, it's
yeah.
insane.
I think it's this I would say this is a limited time offer, a limited time opportunity, because I'm already seeing in a couple of my favorite cities or neighborhoods, I'm already seeing the prices just I bet they've in the last definitely within the last year probably increased. The normal asking prices have gone up about 10%, if not a little bit more. And so I'm seeing this upward pressure, and so finding deals on the MLS in those areas are getting harder. I've branched out into some other suburbs and some cities that are a little bit further away from Cleveland. And so I don't know how long it's going to last. So I'm going to take advantage while I can. I'm already exploring options like Deal Machine. So driving for dollars, virtual driving for dollars, which leads into a direct mail campaign. Um, and I actually purchased a list for some small multifamilies in the area and did a direct mail to them. I'm already kind of starting the balls rolling on other means of finding these deals, because I don't think this is going to be around forever. Like the pressures in the market are going to make this not possible. I'm just lucky that I'm still catching some of these deals on the MLS. I think I'm going to have to do what everybody else does, and that's direct mail, text messages, the driving for dollars and buying from wholesalers. Like eventually I think it's going to go there. Luckily, now that I'm talking about it, maybe everybody will go there, but luckily it's good now, and I can make it happen on the MLS, but I think I'll eventually have to get a little bit more aggressive on finding deals, or I've been looking into other markets too. Memphis, Independence is another area. Memphis, man, deals seem like they're plentiful there too. I don't even look at the MLS. I just get the automated ones from my agent, which I guess is MLS. And there seems like there's plenty of deals there too. So will they last forever? For sure, no. It's going to go away. It's going to get harder and harder.
Well, I mean, to your point, when I think it's also kind of like a balance, right? When one place gets too hot, that means another place isn't, right? So then
Yeah,
you can kind of start shifting. And what I like about your model is that you can shift, right? You can
yeah,
go to other cities. You can, say, okay, where's that next Ohio that, that I can get into? And I think an advantage, if you accept some advice, is that I would start networking with people like myself that are in a city that's saturated, just to see into the future, right? So say,
yeah,
okay, well, if you guys are in those cities and you're still getting deals, how are you doing this? Because
yeah,
as I transition into that, let's say in Ohio, and maybe, I'm not quite ready to go to Memphis or somewhere else, I can start putting these things in place before it gets to that level, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
those are the things that I think back to myself. I'm like, man, should have started doing this, a year ago. Man, I should have started
Yeah.
doing this like 8 months ago. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, COVID drastically pushed the timeline on everything,
Yep.
but it's definitely been a huge learning curve for us regarding that. So you have your bird. How many deals have you done? You said you've been investing for about 5 years, right? Since you started with that property.
Well, really, as far as we rented that first property out for several years before we learned about the BRRRR method and kind of started into some other. We bought one locally. That was the one. That was our first deal. That was the one that we had to back out of, and then we are. So really, we've been going strong for about a year. Um, Using the BRRRR method, a little over a year, and we're closing on our fourth one in Ohio. So nothing crazy, but I mean, I'm pretty stoked that just in the year, just in
Well,
12 months,
it's a
that's the pace.
so I tell people, especially with you have a full time job, right? And they say, "Oh, well, I, if I do this part time or this whatever, or get into rentals, it's gonna take forever. By the time I build up this, like you have no idea how quickly it actually moves once you're in it.
Yeah.
Once you get in it, yeah, the first one takes a while because it's your first one, and then from the first to the second, it might take a little bit longer, right? And then
Yep.
the time goes down drastically and drastically, and next thing I mean, 4 deals in a year while you have a full time job, investing from a distance. Like,
Mm.
I give you a lot of props.
Yeah.
That's a hell of an investment. You're doing very well.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
have you done anything else? Are you flipping, or are you doing anything else, or is just buy and hold?
No, it's just using the BRRRR method, buy and hold. I have definitely I'm learning about, like I said, I mentioned the multifamily syndication. I think that's another awesome opportunity. The payouts are humongous there, or can be, and obviously you can scale very quickly. But the deals take longer, and it's a little more complicated, but definitely doable. So I'm learning about that. I'm underwriting deals. I'm underwriting a 9 unit right now just to see if I can make sense of the deal. Um, and so definitely I've got my feelers out for that. If I come across the right property, we'll definitely jump at a multifamily
And
opportunity.
what do you mean by underwriting? That you're underwriting those deals? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah, just doing the math, running the numbers. Does it make sense, and how much can we pay for it?
Okay, and what are
Yeah,
you using to understand because multifamily doesn't run the same as single, right? Depending on the size of the property, it depending on how much vacancy it has, that's the valuation, the
yeah.
net operating income and all that. So, how did you learn how to even start assessing to even understand when you're analyzing it? Does this even make sense?
Yeah, so that's where that mentor came in. The mentorship that I have subscribed to or signed up for was for multifamily syndication. So I was able to get access to a calculator or a spreadsheet that can help me with the underwriting, analyzing all the moving parts of a syndication deal, and so that's where I've learned all that stuff. And I'm not currently being mentored now, but I kind of learned a foundation that I felt like I could now go out and start to analyze deals and see if I can make sense of them. And for those that maybe don't know, syndication is where I get the property under contract, and then I go and I have investors, I raise money for the down payment of purchasing that deal. So I'm just putting the deal together for other investors to invest in. And obviously I get like an acquisition fee, and I get part of the cash flow. And then obviously when we sell it in 7 8 to 10 years, I get part of the proceeds there too. So as well as the investors. So it's a cool model because it doesn't take a lot of capital on my own to get into these 24 or 32 unit properties, because I'm raising that capital through investors.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, a lot. Big multifamily is something that a lot of people ask me, when are you going to get into it? And I'm like, well, when I see something that makes sense, because it's the same thing here. I do want to start branching off outside of Texas. Just haven't gotten there. But as far as San Antonio goes, I mean, trying to find something with cap rates that make any amount of sense
Yeah.
is damn near impossible. We're finding, properties are pretty distressed selling for like a 5 cap rate, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I get less risk on a single family right now. I'd rather stick to
Yeah.
what I know and what generates better revenue for me.
Yeah, and you're doing it right. I mean, there's math, there's rules of thumb in multifamily, just like there is in single family. And if it doesn't meet the criteria, you walk. Like do not try and force any of those deals. I mean, that's the thing. Like, yeah, I've got the same thing going on with this 9 unit. Like, they're asking probably double what it should be selling for, and I just have to stick to my math. I know the math. I know the rules. I know what it has to be purchased at to make a deal out of it. And even though I get laughed at when I submit my offers, like I until I find the right one, I won't. I'm not going to force it. But the cool thing is with all this, it's practice. Like, yeah, I may not buy anything for 2 years, but when that 32 unit comes along, that's distressed property and distressed seller that ready to get out, and I find it off market, I'll know how to run those deals, those numbers, and I'll be able to grab it. So
Eh,
to me, it's just this is practice rounds,
I love
and
that
I'll be
you I love that you made that point of saying, practice, because I tell a lot of people too when they get in, I'm like, analyze deals, look at comps, look at
yeah,
deals, go see what wholesalers are putting out, see what's on the market, analyze them like you're going to buy them, go look at them like you're going to buy them, even if you're not buying them, but the experience that you get from going to these properties and saying, what questions should I be asking? What does this mean? Is this an issue? Or what about this over here? So I'm like, that's real learning. That's better than any course. I usually shy people away from buying courses and stuff because I tell them, like, when you don't know anything, there's nothing better than getting out there and just taking action.
yeah,
Because you'll learn so much more as you go. And one thing that you said at the beginning was there's not one way to do a deal, right? There's no like, oh, here's how you uh, do the BRRRR method. Here's the formula. Go and do every single BRRRR the same exact way. It's gonna hit
yeah,
the nail on the head every single time you do it. Like, no, there's a million different ways. Contracts, the sellers, the motivation, the
yeah.
repairs, the market conditions. So you know, you gotta get out there and put in the work.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, just pick a market, throw a dart, pick a market, and just start running deals. If you can't make any sense of it, and try a different market. Like I just you've got to get familiar with the numbers and how to make sense of these deals, so that when one does come along, you'll be ready for it. Maybe when you find a way to fund it or whatever maybe the obstacle is, like
right.
you need to be able to find the deals and make and determine whether it's a deal.
So right now for your business, your next level is you're needing funding, right? You're needing to so that's kind of we were talking earlier, you were saying that you're transitioning into gathering some private funds and stuff like that. How has that been for you? Like what have you noticed, with that whole ordeal?
Yeah, it's a yeah, so there's a few good books out there on raising private capital. And I've read those and just basically created a list of friends, family, maybe coworkers that I felt like could be interested in putting their money in something like this, and then just slowly started reaching out to them. Um, I usually do the approach of, "Hey, I'm in." You may have seen because I'm all over social media, so my family and friends know what I'm doing, and that's why I use social media. Honestly, is just to kind of get that attention, so people are aware of what's going on. And and so I just, hey, as you may maybe I've been investing in real estate in Ohio. I'm currently finding more deals than I can fund personally, so I'm looking for private investors. I'm looking for investors that want to make 10% on their money. And then instead of asking them directly, I say, do you know anyone that would be interested? Or maybe you're interested, and just leave it at that. And some people don't respond. Some people respond and say no. Some people respond and say, yeah, I'd like to learn more about that. So it's just been kind of thinking through that list, and just you'll be surprised if you sit down and make a list how many people would be open to this. Just a good friend from high school just reached out to me just the other day, and he's like, "Hey, man, I want to, I've got some money sitting around making 0.0003% in the bank, and I'd like to do a little bit better with that. So let's talk about your deals and what we can do together." So it's slow. It's a slow process. Currently have two, maybe three investors that are open to it. And so we're just working through the details, answering their questions, and hopefully we can start doing deals with them.
All of our deals get funded through private investors, and we've been gathering these people for quite a few years now, and we've been able to build a good little you know, I guess you call it Rolodex, right?
Yeah.
But nobody
Yeah.
uses Rolodex anymore. So a good contact list of private individuals that we borrow from. But to your point, social media is really what's helped us. We're always showing the projects we're doing, the investments we're doing, the stuff that's involved in the project, and that's why they've come to us and said, "Hey, I see what you're doing. It seems like you know what you're doing. I want to invest." Right? And it just does that proof of concept where at least they see that you're not full of crap. So I think you're going about it exactly the right way. It's what's worked for us. Um, but it is something that once you get their trust, it kind of snowballs, right? They
Yeah.
tell their friends, and more people hear about it, and then money almost doesn't become any more of an issue, right, for you.
Yeah.
But until that happens, yeah, it's pulling teeth. You got to pay a little bit more just to kind of get that trust,
Yeah.
built up. But
Yeah. Yeah, and some people are hesitant to maybe work with friends and family, and I totally get that. I know Dave Ramsey has shied everybody away from working with family, and I get that. But you got to look at it as you're not begging for money. You're not asking for a loan. You're saying, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you to make good interest on your money. If you're interested, let's talk." Like you're actually bringing value to them. They're not just giving you money to go invest in real estate. You're providing an opportunity for them to invest and earn good money on their money. And so you're actually solving a problem they may have. In fact, I just had a guy the other day. He's like, I am he had met with a financial advisor, and the financial advisor was like, because he was going to put some money into some investments through this guy. And the guy's like, well, we feel like if we're making you 6% on your money, that's kind of our target. That's our goal. And this guy was like, well, I know I can do better than that. Like, even if I manage it myself. I'm like, you're right. And I can, yeah, on with my investors, I do 10% over a 12-month period. So people are looking for places where they can make more money, more interest on their money, and not have the volatility of maybe the stock market or something like that. So you're actually providing a service, you're providing an opportunity of value to them. So it's not like you're begging for money, and you have to get your mind around that.
I will push back a little on the friends and family part because where I've seen, as I've been investing in real estate for about 7 years now, one thing that I've seen with people that borrow money is the majority don't know what the hell they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is pretty much like their first deal. It's not like somebody like yourself that you're like, hey, I'm 4 deals in. I've put my own money. I ironed out the numbers. I've looked at hundreds of deals. I've gone through this. A lot of people, it's like it's their first deal. It's their
Yeah.
first at bat. I want to flip a property because I saw it on Facebook or on HGTV or whatever. I know what subway tiles I'm gonna put on there, and all of a sudden, let me borrow money from my family, from my friends, and I'm like, these are the people that you probably see in every weekend that you're hanging out with, that you're doing all this. And for the first deal, like a lot of times, unless your family is like very wealthy, they'll lend you 30 grand, which is 30 grand out of 35 that they have for their life
Yeah.
savings, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you lose that money, like it makes the next get together very awkward,
No, yeah, I
right?
agree. I agree totally.
So
Yeah.
that's always been my kind of warning when people are raising from friends and family. I'm like, just make sure that you know what the hell you're doing because
Yeah.
it becomes extremely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think you should lose anybody's money, but when it's your first at bat and you're already borrowing money, I think the risks are so much higher. And then if you add to that family and friends, I don't know. I think it can get
Yeah.
very,
No,
very uncomfortable.
you're right. I think it's a good point. Honestly, and it's a good clarification maybe for what I kind of said. But yeah, if it's your first deal and you don't have a partner or a mentor that's making sure you don't screw it up, then yeah, taking grandma's nest egg of 40 grand is not a good idea. Like, don't do that. Like, um, so I think you're right. That's a good exception to that, what I said there. And because you're right, it can sour Thanksgiving dinner for sure if you just lost 30 grand of somebody's money. And for me, I have reserves and I have access to a large home equity line of credit. So as I talk to people, I'm like, if this deal gets weird and it's starting to create issues between me and you, I'm writing you a check out of my home equity line of credit and paying you out. And then I'm going to go figure the deal out or sell it or whatever I got to do. So I've hedged it. I've got cushion in
Yeah.
between my own savings and my own access to funding. And because I don't want I don't want any pressure on our relationship. And even with my private investors that I don't know, I've got one that I've never met before. It was just recommended to me that he was doing private money loans, and so I contacted him. He said, "Yeah, let's do that." But I would still treat him just the same. Like I've got my own hedge, my own reserves. So if things get weird, I can get you out, and I can go deal with the problem while you're paid in full, and there's no issues. So I definitely would, yeah, definitely either make sure you've got a mentor or somebody walking you through those first deals, or do some deals on your own, and then start bringing people in, and just make sure you can protect them and make sure that you've got exits if you need it.
Yeah, no, it's very good to hear that you have integrity with the deals, the way that you want to run your business, and you're already knowing, like, in case something was to happen, I have this backup. I can make you whole. I'll take care of you. I mean, I always hear from a lot of investors that's like, hey, look, that's the risk with investing. Some you win, some you lose, and I'm like, oh, you're already going in it that way. Like,
Mm,
you're pretty much telling me that you're not gonna take care of their money. You're
no, yeah,
already hedging your bets on, like, hey, we might lose some, and if you're going in it that way, man, I feel bad for whoever's lending money to you.
yeah. I would start liquidating my portfolio before I defaulted on a private lender's money. Like
Yep.
I would start selling. Hey, this is my deal. I messed it up. I'll put these two houses on the market. Give me 30 days. I'll have your money back or whatever. Like I have levels of protection. I feel like obviously I
Yeah.
can't foresee everything, and I'm blind to a few risks, but I want to make sure that I can keep them
And
happy. That's number one.
and you might be blinded to a few risks, but all overall, with the level of equity you're looking in these properties, the level of all these things, that even if things were to go south, you'd probably be able to put it back on the market and either get all of it or nearly all of it back and
Yeah.
make everybody whole. So I
Yeah.
mean that, even with our private money lenders, we'll have sometimes people that want to partner with us, and they bring us kind of questionable deals. And they're like, but come on, you have these great private money lenders. Why don't you do them? I'm like, because then if I do these questionable deals, I no longer have them. Like,
Yeah.
I need to take care of their money. And this is a very risky deal that I'm not comfortable putting their money in. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I'm not willing to do that. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to be, conscious of your time. I know that you told me you had a little bit of a time limit, so I wanted to wrap up by asking you about your meetups. That you said you started doing some virtual meetups, to get people networking, get people collaborating. So I was very interested in that. Could you expand a little bit? Like, which are they? What meetups do you have? What do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. So a big part, like I said, the platform, the podcasts that I run, all my presence on social media, it's all about just meeting people that are doing what I'm trying to do, and hopefully showing people that are trying to do what I'm doing how to do it. That's why I share what we do, and I believe that real estate is largely a networking game. Like it's so helpful when you know people and people know you. And so as well as the education, right? Learning from others. And so these meetups are all about meeting people that are currently doing what you may be trying to do and learning from them, and other people, and learning for or seeing how other people that are making the exact same steps, they're right with you. You're not learning from a guru that's been doing it 25 years or did it 25 years ago. You're learning from people that are like right in the mix of it. And so, yeah, we have two meetups right now. One is long distance real estate investing. In fact, the first one is well, it probably won't matter by the time this is out, but it'll be, I think it's the second Wednesday of every month. And I think we'll have the links in here to go to that. Long distance real estate investing. Sometimes I'll present that. Sometimes I'll have a guest on that has been doing long distance real estate investing to share a different point of view on it. And then the other meetup that we're doing is breaking into multifamily. So if you've been doing single family for a while and you're trying to learn what it would take to jump into multifamily, We are having guests come on there and just give us some tips, like how to transfer from the single family world, and or not, maybe not transfer, but maybe add to your abilities of buying some multifamily, syndicating some multifamily, or maybe it's not even big, maybe it's not even 32 unit properties, but it's that 8 unit property that you want to try and take down, and how to partner on it, how to make it happen, how to run the numbers, those kinds of things. So those meetups have been super fun.
All right. So you have these two meetups. The first one you said it's every second Wednesday of the month,
Yeah, second Wednesday of every month. Yeah.
and the second one, the breaking into multifamily. When is that?
I think it is the fourth Wednesday of every month.
Fourth Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right. And how? What's the setup for these? Like, how do people? We're gonna put the links in the description, but for people listening on podcasts and everything, like, where do they go? Where do they find these?
Yeah. So meetup.com, the link will take you to the meetup.com, and you'll see the different events in there. And on that event, like if you click on tomorrow's event, there'll be a Zoom link. You click on that Zoom link and it'll bring you into that virtual meetup
So
directly.
it's on Zoom, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be you're gonna be moderating, kind of leading
Mhm.
it up, and then what? Like, people are gonna be able to kind of jump in, ask
Yeah.
questions, network, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So no sales pitch, right? Nobody's going to be selling any product there, any courses. That's for sure. Don't want to do that. We'll usually have 15 to 30 minutes of either me or the guest speaker presenting, kind of doing some training on a certain topic that we want to cover, and then we just open it up for Q&A. And that's obviously been like the best. Like, you have access to some of these guys that have done this and that you're learning from. And so usually the second half of it is just questions and answers. And you raise your hand and we get you a minute to ask your question and have an engagement with that speaker or me, and learn what you're currently facing and how to overcome it. So
Uh, Man, that sounds really cool. I'm definitely going to be jumping in on some of those meetups. I love networking. I've built my whole business on networking. I always say, like, I'm not the smartest person in any room, but I know who is, and I know how to find them. I know how to bring those people value. So I'm able to always tap into those resources whenever I need to. So, with that being said, what's the name of your podcast? What's the name of your show?
the Money Maven Project podcast is the podcast that we run. Yeah.
And what's it about, real quick? What do you do with that podcast?
Yeah, the Money Maven Project. So I started that because again, early on, like as I was listening to some of the bigger pockets podcasts and other podcasts that were out there, I felt like it was people that were just way far down the path, and I couldn't really relate to them. Oh yeah, I have 100 doors, and here I am trying to buy my first or second door. And so I wanted to be a resource for people that were right there. They were trying to buy their first or second door and just learn the ins and outs of real estate. And so that's why we started it. So it's a beginner level. We talk about, getting into real estate, buying your first few deals. That's kind of the main message. And we focus a lot on mindset and the mentality that you have to succeed in real estate, but also in everything in life, as being a dad or being a parent, you know, and maybe in religion. Like, we want a full life, success on all fronts of our lives. So we focus a lot about mindset and how we view our lives and designing the life that you want. So kind of the twofold efforts there, or messages there, to the podcast.
I like it, and I think we talked about it before. I relate to that reasoning because it was the same reason why I started mine. It was just like, oh, when I started in real estate 15 years ago, this is what I did. And it's like, oh, that does not help me at all right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all those, once upon a time kind of stories. So, two final questions for you. Somebody starting brand new, they want to get into buy and hold, all of that. What is one tip that you would give them that you wish you would have had when you got started? What is that one thing that you'd tell them, like, hey, you're getting started in buy and hold, doesn't matter where you are, do this first. What does that look like?
I would find somebody that you can, whether it's paid or not, a mentor or a coach or somebody that's just done it, that you can bounce questions off of. That's going to be huge. It'll help you avoid a few mistakes, and it will allow you to progress a little bit quicker. Again, I don't think you have to invest a lot in this. I mean, the guy that mentored me on the Ohio market, it was $100 and it saved me 6 months of research. Like, it was so worth it. Um, And so begin networking early on and meeting people and going to meetups and going to your local real estate association meetings and things like that. And because networking is going to be huge down the road as you start to maybe transition into other markets, maybe start looking for private investors, it'll pay dividends down the road. So start that earlier on. If you're looking to buy and hold, you just you learn it, learn the ropes, learn the tactics through the books and podcasts, and jump in with that mentor and get after it. If I was to redo it, I would probably, if I was to start tomorrow and I could, meaning I didn't have 4 kids, I would probably figure out how to house hack. I think that's one of the most powerful ways to get into real estate is house hacking. Even like I said, I'm not the guru on that because I didn't do it, but that's a very powerful way to get in because you can, it's, whatever, 3.5% down, sometimes 0 down, very easy way to get into real estate investing. And so I would start there as my buy and hold entrance and then scale from there, honestly.
Okay, very cool. Great tip. And last thing, what is a book or maybe a podcast or something that you feel like this has been that thing that made the difference for me in real estate that I recommend, you can't get into this without reading this, you know, and you can do a couple of each, whatever makes sense for you, but like what is that one thing?
Yeah, that's a hard one. But so I've already mentioned the Bigger Pockets podcast. That was huge. All the resources, biggerpockets.com, all the books they put out are great. Um, but even with all that, I needed a mindset shift to help me get anywhere with all that data. I think I have it right here. So the 10x rule will be one that I recommend. This one helped me start to think way bigger, setting bigger goals, thinking outside of what I thought was possible, just setting ridiculous goals. And when you commit to really big goals, your mind starts to work at a different level. All of a sudden, your mind starts to figure out how to make those things possible. And so think bigger, set bigger goals. And I hear all the time, yeah, I want to buy another property in 2021. I'm like, just one? Like, man, set that, really, like, set a goal that's impossible. And then let's try and figure out we know one's easy. We can do one. Why would we even set a goal for that? Let's set a goal for 15 and then try and figure out how to get there. And maybe we end up at 9, but that's better than 1. So the 10x rule was a huge help in just starting the juices flowing of thinking bigger and setting big goals, but also being ready, because this is another, as you get into real estate, it's going to be 10 times harder than you think. It's probably going to take longer. It's going to take way more effort than you ever considered. So you need to mentally be ready for that too. And the 10x rule covers all that. The 10x rule by Grant Cardone, absolutely a mindset shift, which I ultimately think is way more important than just, you can go learn how to flip a house. That's great. But if your mindset's messed up and you've got limiting beliefs and you've got small goals and you're not committed to those goals, you're not going to make it very far. So I think mindset is a huge focus. It needs to be a huge focus.
And I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think that was a great way to wrap that up and to bring that together because mindset, where I see a lot of people struggle and they're looking for that hack or that tactic or this or that, and it's not working. A lot of it is just looking at them and telling them, like, look, there is no hack. This is how it's done. And it's really like, that's really the strategy, but you got to shift this. That's what's holding you back. It's not the actual strategy of how to, find deals or how to get them. It's just like you have whatever limiting beliefs you have in there that's causing you to, not break through and not
Yeah,
implement that simple strategy. So,
exactly.
so very well said, man. And man, I had fun. This was a great interview. I learned a lot. I think you have a great business. I think you've started off. You have some great strategy, some great systems in place. I really look up to what you're doing because at least where we are in Texas, I see so many shady investors all over the place and not respecting the business. And it's very good to meet people that are actually taking it serious and doing it the right way. So I'm very,
Yeah.
very happy I met you. Great interview. I really, had a lot of values, and I know people are definitely going to have a lot of value with this. And like we said, people below are going to be all the links, all the descriptions. to the meetups, to his podcast, how to get a hold of Justin. So everything's going to be below in the description. Go check out his podcast. It's a mindset shift. It's exactly what's probably holding you back. It's most likely not strategy.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Justin, for being on. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you.